In this presentation on women's role and position in the emergence of Homo sapiens, I'm going to concentrate my presentation now on only one element, the first part, that is to say, the position of women and the vision of women in those ancient societies. I'm talking of ancient societies, that is to say 300,000 years ago for the beginning of the emergence of Homo sapiens, up to 15 or 17,000 years ago, and the invention and development of agriculture and herding. Between those two dates, women have a very important role to play and position. I've always been very impressed by Charles Darwin saying that it is the female who chooses the male partners within the procreative process, which means that the better women are choosing the better men and the less good women are choosing the less good men, according to criteria that may change over time, but that are let's say, the community's criteria. This being said, man, when Homo sapiens, when he got out of the forest into the savannah, started having to run after animals in order to hunt them, run after fast animals, and that changed his way of hunting. He had to become a fast, bipedal, long-distance runner. That changed the structure of his feet, and at the same time that brought the narrowing of his hips, his or her hips. It was the same for women who had also the obligation to run. If we take that into account, then we can start understanding what is happening during that long emergence. What is happening are mutations, for the feet of course, but mutations a lot more in the genetic heritage of a human being, Homo sapiens. The first mutation that is very obvious is the lowering of the larynx, but it is also the innervation of the subglottal, glottal and mouth areas that enable breathing and properly articulating to later on, but that's the second part. It needs also mutation that are going to reinforce the diaphragm, because the diaphragm is the main muscle of that long distance breathing, whereas the larynx is the pump of it. But it also requires a change and evolution and development of the Broca area in the brain, so that everything is going to be coordinated. The breathing, of course, but also the heart rhythm, as well as the articulation and respiratory system, glottal, larynx and glottal areas, the diaphragm, but also the general movement of the body. You run with your arms, you run with your legs, and you run with the general stance of your body. All that is coordinated by the Broca area, and hence the Broca area has developed. If we say this is the evolution that brought Homo sapiens out of his ancestor or ancestral heritage, we have to see what the consequences are on women in particular. There I'm going to enter the work of Alexander Marshak, who studied a lot of artifacts from those periods, Paleolithic and Magdalenian, where there are on stones or bones some inscriptions of marks that are lined up along tortuous, let's say, lines, not necessarily straight as you can see on this picture. Those are the kind of artifacts Mr. Marshak uses. He analyzes those artifacts and he considers they represent the lunar cycle. But those artifacts never go beyond 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months at the most, which is to say, what can you observe that is interesting for predicting some event within that short period of time? If you want to predict the eclipses of the moon or of the sun by the moon, you have to look at longer periods. So I think that he missed the point. He missed the point that there is a second and quite important cycle that he should have considered. It is the menstrual cycle of women, as you can see on this picture, and we're going to comment upon it. This cycle, the moon cycle, is 29.5 days. This cycle is average between 27, 28, 29 days, about the same thing. It is in the same way as a moon cycle, which is centered on the full moon, 3-4 days at the most. This menstrual cycle is centered on the fertility period, which is 3-4 days maximum. You have a pre-fertility period and a post-fertility period. The pre-fertility period includes the period per se, and the post-fertility period is moving back to a second cycle, if second cycle there is, if the woman has not been impregnated. If she has, then you're going to go on observing, and those are the inscriptions are longer than 1 month. You go on observing those women, make sure with a second cycle, and this time you can say that those cycles are more or less calculated from the moon, because a pregnancy for a woman is 10 lunar months, though we generally say it's 9 solar months. We are speaking of, in those days, more in lunar cycles, lunar months, because they are visible, whereas solar months are not visible. If we take that into account, then it is very important to know exactly when a woman is fertile to impregnate her. Why is it so important? Because the survival of the community and the survival of the species depends on those children that are produced by this impregnation cycle: impregnation, pregnancy, delivery. Note it is ternary. The second cycle that you're going to have too is the pregnancy and the delivery, leading to the birth and then to the raising of the child, who is going to be dependent up to the age of 5, and after that he or she will have to be educated up to the age of 12 when they become fertile. What is important is that with a 50% death rate among children under the age of 5, with the possible accidents at delivery, the mothers dying in it and the child dying in it too, then various diseases and also accidents after 5 and all along the life of the individuals, then the fact that some women are not necessarily fertile or as fertile as others, if you take into account the fact that a woman is fertile at the age of 13 and she will die at the age of 29, life expectancy, in 16 years, she is supposed to produce as many children as necessary to get 3 to 4 procreative life. That means very clearly that in 16 years, women are supposed to have 10 pregnancy. That means that they have to have a pregnancy every 18 months. A woman is always with a child in her womb, a child to her breast, and one or two children around her. And that requires a social organization that we will consider later on. If we go on with this fertility cycle of women, we have to see that the representation of women that we get from those periods must represent that position of women. And I'm going to start with the first image on the left, as you can see, which is an image from a site in Dordogne, France. The site is l'Abri Maigre de Teja. This image on the left showed you a representation of a woman, very schematic representation of a woman, but which is essential. Marshak makes a mistake. The slit at the bottom, look at it again, at the bottom, the slit is not the division between the legs, but it is the real vulva of the woman. If you look at it, you have the vulva at the bottom, in the middle you have the center, the belly button and the womb, and over you have the two breasts. The two breasts are marked by two strokes, which are the delimiter or show the tit of the breast, and then you have the three levels of the woman, impregnation, the vulva, pregnancy, the belly button and the womb, and then breastfeeding, that is delivery and raising the children, ternary. Marshak speaks of the woman as a goddess. He missed the point. She is a triple goddess, and that is fundamental. The breast, over the breast, you have two lines on each side, one unhashed and the other one hashed. If you take the two breasts, the breast and the two lines on each side, that makes 3 on the left and 3 on the right, and you get to a set of 6, which is also ternary. On the side of the body, you have small little strokes that are making some kind of curving lines or alignments, and on each side you have 3 of those curving alignments. 3 and 3 make 6 again. You see the structure of the woman is triple in many ways, but he adds, and look at it very clearly, he adds 2 vulvas on the torso. I don't know if it is a he actually, it might be a she. The artist, we don't know the identity of the artist. Those 2 vulvas that are added on the torso of the woman makes 3 with the real vulva, and that's the fundamental ternary structure. If we look now at the other picture, which is this time on the right of my presentation, it is vertical. You could look at it horizontally, it would be the same thing. You have a representation this time of man. And this representation is double and dual, not ternary at all. You have vertically on the top a smaller penis entering a vulva, a woman's vulva, that is to say, man as the procreator, and under the lower part a bigger penis facing a bear. And this is man as a hunter. Man is dual. He is the hunter and the procreator. Women are ternary, and that is fundamental in anthropology and so on and so on. When you have said that, the triple goddess that woman is, how can she be represented in those days? And there is a last representation I want you to see, is this one, and this one is the woman of Predmast. The one first on the proper side, that is on the left, the whole picture. You have the 3 layers of the woman, the womb, which is horizontal, the vulva, which is horizontal and expanded, the womb, which is normal in size, centered on the belly button, and then the breast on over the womb. So you have the ternary structure of the woman, the vulva, the womb, and the breasts. Two breasts, that means you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to see what I mean later on. If you add to that the head that we're going to look at later on, that makes 5. And then you have the 2 arms, that makes 7, and the 2 legs, that makes 9. I say here that we generally consider that numbering and counting was invented by man with his fingers and his toes. And here I'm showing you that there is another way of counting, and this time is based on the structure of woman's body. What is more important too, for what I have to say, is the head of the woman of Predmast. You can see that the head has 2 big eyes expanded in size with a nose in the middle, and then 2 lips under that which are also expanded. Woman is a seer and a speaker, and as a seer and a speaker she is in contact with the supernatural world. And as the one who is in contact with the supernatural world, she has a very important spiritual role to assume in society. She can speak to the spirits, she can speak to people in various occasions, accompanying them in their rituals and ritualized activities, from impregnation to birth and to death. That is all I'm going to say today, and this should enable you to start understanding that we have to reassess the position of women in those old Paleolithic and Magdalenian societies before the emergence of agriculture and herding that are going to change the structure, shift from women-dominated communities to men-dominated communities, and everything that we know after that modern time, modern humanity, post-agricultural humanity. And that will be for a second part. I mean, a face-to-face presentation later on. So, have a good day, if I can say so.